Hey there, Tracy here for Trinity Stamps. In today's video, we are going to make a fun card with a twist. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Okay, so for today, and hi by the way, for today we are going to be using the Astronomical Gnomes stamp and coordinating die. We're going to use this little guy with the flying balloon. And we are going to use our Time Warp Letterpress stamping die, and we're going to foil that. As you can see, I've got my glimmer out there to the left. But we're going to start by creating our background, and I'm going to use some Simon Hurley inks here. And I'm going to grab a piece of his cardstock, which foils pretty good on its own. I'm on the fence about how it foiled after I ink blended, and you can ink blend either before or after. Doesn't really matter because these are dye inks, but I sometimes worry, especially when I'm using, for instance, a holographic silver, that the dye ink might change the color of it. So I'm going to start with just a circle here in the center of my darkest color, and you can use any colors you like for this. I'm just kind of going with a popular combination here. Then I'm coming in with my prom queen and just coming in around that circle, and I'm not too terribly worried about harsh lines. I am using my blending buddy, and I do have this sped up because it's kind of a repetitive process. Then I'm going to come along the outside here with the guppy. And I'm going to do 2 layers, so don't worry if it looks funky. You can fix it. You just have to be patient and go in with more layers. You could use distress oxides, but I would recommend doing those before you foil if you're going to foil, because they could impede the ability for your foil to stick. And so see, I'm just coming back over it with the same colors, just kind of blending them out better. Now that the paper's nice and saturated, it'll take my ink better. And after I'm done with this, I will trim it down and I will let it dry completely. So now that it's dry, and I still have a little bit of a harsh edge, but I'm not too worried about it, because it's giving me the look I want here. And oops, there's something stuck to my trimmer. Watch for things stuck to your trimmer. I'm going to trim this down to 3 3/4 by 5, keeping in mind where I'm going to place my little gnome, because he's kind of the centerpiece that's going to cover this purple partially. So you'll see that in a moment here. So I'm picking out my gnome and see how I want him sitting on there, and then I'll have my sentiment down here to the bottom. So now I'm going to foil this, and so my foiling machine is going to get warmed up here. I've already got my plate on there, but I don't need it on there just yet because I want to place my circle. And so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of putting my finger where the circle is and laying it down on my press plate where I want that circle to kind of start radiating out those rays. And I'll just tape the top and make a little hinge. And then I'm going to take some silver holographic foil from Spellbinders. I'm just going to cut a piece off, big enough to cover the size of my card. And probably even bigger, but that's okay. And I'll just lift up that little hinge and lay this pretty side down on the plate. And then just lay my paper back down onto it. And I'll lay it all on my glimmer machine. Kind of waiting for it to heat up. Okay, now it's hot. We've got a green light, and I'm going to put the cover on it, but I'm going to take it off again, and you'll see that in a minute. So once it's done doing its blinking here, and I'll zoom out here so you can see a little bit better, I'm going to take the cover off just for a moment and carefully slide this out so it doesn't move on me, and then put it back on once I have it over in my machine. Less chance of me shifting it. I'm just going to run it through slowly. And we do get a little bit of underfoiling, but it doesn't matter in this case. So I'm just going to pull that off, and now I've got everything put away here. I'll pull the foil back, and there we go. We've got our beautiful burst design. Let's just get our mint tape off of here. And it's the center is right exactly where I wanted it to be. So now I'm going to take some solar spray here and carefully try and dump some onto my work mat. And just grab this little bitty brush and just start tapping on. And this is golden hour solar spray. So even though I used silver, I want to use gold too. That's just going to give it a more of a dimensional effect. And so I'll set that aside to dry. And now I'm going to do my stamping, and I'm stamping on silver holographic paper. So I'm going to use my StazOn ink because it dries quickly and it won't smear once it's dry. And I'm just going to stamp once, and I'm going to leave everything in my stamp platform. And I'm going to come in with my acrylic markers, and I'm going to color. And so, you know, use what you have. Use Posca. Mine are Ohuhu's. I think Copic makes them. Whatever you have. And the reason that I decided to do this is I wanted to kind of keep with that sort of holographic theme and not have a white, you know, not have white space, but instead have holographic space. So I'm just coloring in, and I do have this way sped up. And I do also do 2 coats. And you're going to see a little magic here because at the end of the video, my gnome has a gray, you know, a darker gray beard. But I wasn't happy with the outcome when I took photographs. So I redid him, and I thought, well, might as well film it while I'm doing it. Because I hadn't filmed it. I just was going to say, hey, I did this off camera. But I decided to do it over, and I decided, well, since I am going over, I will film it. So the trick here is what happens with the acrylic paint pens is they'll get like little spots where it evaporates, and it'll have small little holes. So I always do 2 to 3 coats. But my one main tip with that is that if you're going to do more coats, make sure the first coat is completely dry, because if not, you're just going to smear around what you already have. So we'll get his skin colored here, and then we'll color our little rocket. And especially the light colors, they need a second coat. And I'm not worried if I'm going over my lines. In fact, I kind of want to just a little bit, or at least run right into them, because I'm going to be stamping this again. And the reason for that is obviously to get my line work back, but also I'm going to use a different ink because the StazOn ink will actually pull up my paint. Ask me how I know. Because I tried it and it didn't work. So I end up using VersaFine Clair in Nocturne and then embossing it. And you'll need to emboss it because it won't dry. So I'm setting that aside to dry, and I'm going to go ahead and do my sentiment, wishing you an astronomical birthday. I'm going to do that on some black paper and white heat emboss it. So I am using my Misty tool, and I almost never don't use my Misty tool. This is a mini Misty, by the way. Any kind of stamp platform. I've used all kinds of them because I've been doing this for a little bit. And I think the first one I bought was one of those little spring-loaded ones before I decided that this is something I wanted to actually do for the long term. You know, I just went super cheap just to see if I would like card making. And uh-oh, here I am. Kind of a favorite hobby now. So I stamped that twice, and I'm not pressing super hard, but I am making sure it's all getting pressed down. And I'm not worried about how much anti-static powder is on there because I take a wet cloth and wipe it off. Not soaking wet, just damp. And all that black comes back beautifully. This black paper, by the way, is the Tim Holtz Distressed Black Heavy Stock. It's the blackest paper I know. It has like a velvety feel. If you've never felt it, it's got a really, really interesting texture to it. And it's very heavy. It's about 120 pounds, I'm going to say. Okay, he's nice and dry, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp him out the second time with the VersaFine Clair in Nocturne. And I've got my clear embossing powder at the handy. I'm just going to make sure I get plenty of ink on there because I only want to do it once. You don't want to really do that twice, you know, and risk pulling your paint. because even though it's acrylic paint and it's meant to stick, it sometimes pulls up. It just because of the slick surface it's on. So I'm grabbing my clear embossing powder and embossing this, and I'm not worried about the excess because A, I'm going to be cutting it out, and B, it won't show because it's clear. So you'll see. And here we've got all our line work right back where we started, and even better. And this is all nice and dry, and I can cut it out and we can continue on. So you can see this guy has a white beard, and then magically he's got a gray beard. So I cut a second layer out of the holographic for the word bubble, and I'm going to create a kind of a shadow layer back behind. And see, once you wipe that off with just a little damp cloth, it just comes right back nice. I want to line my background here with some more silver holographic because we're going silver all the way here except for our gold that we have on there. And I just want a thin border. So I'm just going to glue this down to my silver and then trim off the excess versus trying to measure because I'm lazy. So there's that. So lay this down, kind of get the two sides even, and then I'll trim off the excess. And I'm going to put this on a black card base, and the black card base isn't nearly as black as my sentiment because I'm way too cheap to use my expensive black paper for card bases. Sorry, friends. Just can't do it. The stuff's expensive. It's about $2 a sheet. So, and those are 8.5 by 11 sheets. So I'm very protective of it and use it primarily for sentiments. Once in a while, I'll use it as a matte layer. And if I do, I will cut everything out of the middle of it that I can get. Okay, so we've got this ready to go. We're going to lay it down on the card base after I get this little sentiment glued down, and I'm just going to kind of offset it here so that I've got that little bit of shine back behind it, giving it, more of a metallic look. Even though it's done in white, you could imagine it might be metallic, and you could do it in a metallic color if you wanted to. So we know where that's going to go. Let's grab a black card base here. And now look, magically, there's the little gnome with the gray beard. I'm just a tricky person, aren't I? Well, on him, I smeared my black ink and, I made a mess. And I left it, and then I'm like, I can't do that. That's just, I don't love it. And listen, if you don't love something, do it over. It's okay. It's just paper. And for me, it's just time. And, I'm retired, so I have time. And, of course, I want to do a good job representing Trinity Stamps. So you can see that's holographic. In photographs, it's very hard to take pictures of the holographic, but he's got like a silver spacesuit. And so I popped him up on an action wobbler, and I forgot to turn on my camera when I did that, but he's up on an action wobbler. And we've got wishing you an astronomical birthday. And I will show the pictures of the correct beard at the end of the video. Here he goes. Boing, boing, boing. Anybody would love that birthday card. So I hope you like this video. I hope you leave us a thumbs up. I'll have everything listed in the description box down below. Thank you so much for visiting Trinity Stamps. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing to our channel. We would love to have you. We have new designers with new inspiration almost every day. Take care. Bye-bye.